Welcome to Knox Talks, the AI-generated podcast exploring the groundbreaking ways technology shapes our built environment. Today, we're diving into why dumb data is quietly killing smart buildings. Here's the uncomfortable part. A site can have glossy dashboards and AI overlay, fault detection, maybe even a polished enterprise front end, and still be hard to run because the underlying data is chaos. A recent Smart Buildings magazine feature described the issue clearly. HVAC, lighting, metering, security, and access systems still generate data in different formats with inconsistent labels and missing context. So teams have to clean, tag, and normalize it before analytics or a centralized BMS can really use it. In other words, the smart part often begins with manual cleanup. And this is bigger than one article. Project Haystack says most operational data still needs a manual, labor-intensive mapping step before value creation can begin. NIST says the same lack of standardized, machine-readable data is a barrier for controls, FDD, commissioning, indoor air quality applications, and grid interactive services. That's a pretty wild fact, actually. We're not talking about some side problem. We're talking about a bottleneck sitting under some of the industry's biggest promises. So why is it overlooked? Because metadata work is invisible, slow, commercially unsexy. Nobody wants to lead a conference keynote with point naming conventions, but teams pay for that neglect later. If one system says SAT, another says SATemp, and a third uses some cryptic vendor string, the software doesn't magically know those are the same thing. Then add missing units, unclear equipment references, or no location context, and suddenly a simple integration becomes a detective story billed by the hour. This is why semantic structure is moving from nice to have to practical prerequisite. BRIC describes itself as a uniform metadata schema for buildings and says it lowers the cost of deploying analytics, energy measures, and intelligent controls across buildings while reducing reliance on messy, unstructured BMS labels. BATNet has a semantic interoperability working group focused on helping applications find and understand building data automatically. And it's the home for proposed ASHRAE 223P. NIST says 223P has completed an initial public review and is expected to be published in fiscal year 2026. That tells you semantics has moved out of the lab and into implementation. And these efforts aren't random. Haystack helps make data streams more understandable through semantic models and taxonomies. BRIC adds richer descriptions of assets and relationships, and 223P is part of the push to formalize this into interoperable, machine-readable frameworks for analytics and automation. Peer-reviewed research on BRIC and Haystack argues that informal tagging alone can run into interpretability and consistency issues when the rules aren't formalized. So this isn't just about making point names prettier. It's about making data dependable enough for portable applications, scalable analytics, and cleaner handover from project delivery into operations. One of the more useful facts from NIST is that this data problem spans the full building lifecycle from design through operation. So yes, operations inherits it, but delivery teams create a lot of it. That's why bad metadata at handover is such a costly gift. It forces every new software layer, every new service provider, and every portfolio rollout to relearn the building from scratch. So what should owners, FMs, and engineers do now? Start with 50 critical points, not 5,000. Audit names, units, equipment references, and location context. Then push upstream. Write semantic tagging requirements into specs, submittals, and turnover requirements, not just into an analytics scope after occupancy. And at handover, insist on exportable tag data, not a proprietary mapping trapped inside one vendor tool. Where possible, normalize at the edge so data shows up usable from the start instead of getting fixed later in the cloud. Because that's really the takeaway. Smart buildings do not fail only because they lack AI. A lot of them fail because their data has no shared meaning. Clean metadata won't wow anyone in a demo, but it will shorten onboarding, cut integration cost, improve analytics, reduce engineering hours, and make portfolio operations far more scalable. And honestly, that's what smart should mean in the first place.